Family can either break your heart or fuel your ambition. When they do both, that's when life gets interesting. When your family shoots you out, you have two choices. You can mourn, or you can become a millionaire. I chose the latter. My name is Helen Crawford. I'm 72 years old, and I've been invisible to my son Daniel and his wife Claire for the past 7 years. Not completely invisible. They remembered me just enough to send generic birthday cards and the occasional obligatory phone call that always seemed to end with, "We're just so busy." The invisibility started after George, my husband of 43 years, passed away. The funeral was lovely, I suppose. Daniel organized everything, didn't ask for my input, of course. "Don't worry about anything, Mom," he said. But what he meant was, "Don't interfere." After the funeral, everyone went back to their lives. Daniel and Claire to their beautiful home in Richmond, me to an empty house filled with memories and silence. The first Thanksgiving, without George, I waited for an invitation that never came. When I called Daniel, Claire answered and explained they were keeping it small this year, just them and her parents. Christmas was the same. So was Easter, 4th of July, and every holiday after that. Year after year, the pattern continued. The calls became shorter, the excuses more transparent. I'd hear about family gatherings on Daniel's Facebook page after they happened. Pictures of birthday parties for my grandchildren that I wasn't invited to. Holiday meals around tables where my chair remained empty. I spent my 70th birthday alone. No visitors, just a card from Daniel that arrived 3 days late with a generic message and his signature. Not even Claire's name. That night, I cried until there were no tears left. Then I did something I'd never done before. I got angry. "Enough," I told my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My face was puffy from crying, but there was a fire in my eyes I hadn't seen in years. If they don't want me in their life, I'll build my own. The next morning, I drove to the library and asked the young librarian to teach me about computers. She was a patient girl named Melissa who didn't laugh when I asked what a blog was. Instead, she showed me. For the next 6 months, I visited the library every day. I learned how to use a computer, how to navigate the internet, how to create accounts and passwords. Eventually, I bought my own laptop with money I'd been saving for a rainy day. Turns out being abandoned by your family qualifies as a downpour. I started a blog called New Horizons Journal. At first, I just wrote about my day, my thoughts, my memories. But then I started sharing recipes, knitting patterns, and life advice for my 7 decades on this earth. I wrote about losing George, about loneliness, about finding purpose in your later years. To my surprise, people read it. Then more people read it. Comments poured in from other women my age who felt invisible, forgotten. "You put into words what I've been feeling for years," one woman wrote. "Thank you for making me feel less alone." 6 months after I started the blog, I opened an Etsy shop selling digital downloads of my knitting patterns and recipe collections. A month later, I added printable journals designed specifically for seniors. The sales trickled in at first, then steadily grew. By my 71st birthday, I had over 10,000 regular readers and was making more money from my little digital empire than I ever had in my working years as a school secretary. I celebrated alone, but this time with an expensive bottle of champagne and a sense of pride I hadn't felt in years. And then, out of the blue, the phone rang. It was Daniel, inviting me to Christmas dinner. After 7 years of silence and exclusion, what he didn't know was that I wasn't the same desperate, lonely woman anymore. I was Helen Crawford, digital entrepreneur and the voice behind New Horizons Journal, and I was about to give my family the surprise of their lives. Little did they know, I wasn't coming to their Christmas dinner to receive a gift. I was bringing a revelation that would leave them speechless. I stared at my phone long after Daniel hung up, wondering what prompted the sudden invitation. Had guilt finally caught up with him, or was there something else? "We really want you to come, Mom," he'd said, his voice carrying that forced cheerfulness I'd come to recognize. "Claire's making her special ham. The kids have been asking about you." The kids have been asking about me? The same grandchildren who wouldn't recognize me if I passed them on the street? The ones whose birthday parties I watched through Facebook photos like some digital ghost? I almost said no. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. "I'll be there," I said simply, and hung up before he could respond. The week before Christmas, I prepared carefully. I bought a new outfit, not the sensible, grandmotherly cardigan and slacks they would expect, but a stylish blue dress that matched my eyes and complemented my silver hair, which I'd stopped dyeing brown after George died. I had my hair professionally styled, my nails done in a festive red. Small rebellions, perhaps, but they made me feel powerful. I also prepared my business report, 12 months of analytics, revenue figures, and growth projections, all neatly organized in a leather portfolio. My digital life quantified in charts and numbers they could understand. When Christmas Day arrived, I hired a car service to drive me to Richmond, another small luxury I could now afford. The driver helped me with my bags, just a small overnight case, and my gift bag, containing carefully wrapped presents for everyone, including my grandchildren, Emma and Ryan, whose ages I knew only because I'd seen their birthday announcements online. Daniel's house looked exactly as I remembered, a grand colonial with perfect landscaping and a designer wreath on the door. I stood on the porch for a moment, steadying myself, before ringing the bell. Claire answered, her surprise at my appearance poorly disguised behind her smile. "Helen, you look different." "Thank you," I said, stepping inside without waiting for a proper invitation. "You have a lovely home. It's been so long since I've seen it, I'd almost forgotten." The barb landed exactly as intended. Claire's smile faltered as she took my coat. Daniel appeared from the living room, drink in hand. "Mom, you made it." He gave me an awkward side hug, careful not to spill his bourbon. "You look great. Did you do something with your hair?" "I did, about 5 years ago, but thank you for noticing now." The kids were summoned from the depths of the house, clearly coached to greet me. Emma, now 13, offered a perfunctory hug before returning to her phone. Ryan, 10, actually seemed interested, asking if I was really his dad's mom. That almost broke my heart. "I am indeed," I told him, though sometimes I think he's forgotten that fact. Dinner was a stilted affair. Claire's parents dominated the conversation, talking about their recent cruise and their country club friends. I was asked exactly 3 questions. How was my health? Was I still in the same house? And wasn't it hard living alone? I answered politely, saving my revelations for later. I observed them all. The way Daniel and Claire barely spoke to each other, how Emma rolled her eyes at everything, how Ryan seemed starved for attention. My family, strangers all. After dinner came the gift exchange. As expected, there was nothing from me. I watched as everyone tore through expensive presents, designer clothes, electronics, jewelry. When the flurry subsided, Daniel looked at me apologetically. "Sorry, Mom, we didn't know you were coming till last week, and with all the holiday rush..." I smiled genuinely for the first time that evening. "That's quite all right. I didn't expect anything, but I do have something I'd like to share with all of you." I reached for my purse and pulled out the leather portfolio. Consider this my gift to you, the knowledge that your mother, grandmother, and mother-in-law is doing just fine on her own. Daniel frowned. "What's this?" This, I said, opening the portfolio, is my annual report. What happened next would change everything about how my family saw me and how I saw myself.
Annual report? Daniel laughed nervously, looking at Claire for support. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm talking about my business, I said calmly, laying out the colorful charts and graphs on their coffee table. New Horizons Journal. Perhaps you've heard of it? No? That doesn't surprise me. Claire's father leaned forward, his interest piqued. As a retired business executive, he recognized a professional presentation when he saw one. You have a business? He asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. I do, Walter, for almost 2 years now. I pointed to the first page. It started as a blog for seniors by a senior. Then it expanded to digital products, online courses, and now a membership community with over 15,000 subscribers. Ryan peered at the papers. You make websites, Grandma? Among other things, I smiled at him. I also design digital planners, create online courses about aging gracefully, and host weekly webinars on topics ranging from retirement finances to reconnecting with estranged family members. I glanced pointedly at Daniel, who had the decency to look uncomfortable. I flipped to the revenue page, and this is what my little hobby generated last year. Walter whistled low. Claire's mother gasped. Daniel's face went pale. That's more than I make, Daniel stammered. He was a mid-level manager at an insurance company, a job he'd complained about for years, but never had the courage to leave. I know, I said simply. I saw your promotion announcement on LinkedIn. Congratulations, by the way. Claire finally found her voice. Who helped you do this? The question revealed so much about how they viewed me, as incapable, dependent, technologically inept. I helped myself, Claire. I went to the library. I took online courses. I joined forums and learned from other entrepreneurs. I worked 14-hour days for months. I made mistakes and fixed them, just like any business owner. Emma, suddenly interested now that money was involved, looked up from her phone. So you're like rich now, Grandma? I laughed. Rich is relative, dear, but I'm comfortable. I travel when I want to. I donate to causes I care about. I hired a personal assistant last month, a lovely young woman about your father's age who needed a second chance. And I recently bought a new condo downtown, near the Arts District. You sold the house, Daniel? Looked shocked. Why didn't you tell me? For the same reason you didn't tell me about Emma's graduation or Ryan's piano recital, I replied evenly. We don't seem to share important news in this family. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Claire's parents exchanged glances. Ryan, bless his heart, broke the tension. That's really cool, Grandma. Can I see your website? Of course, sweetheart. I pulled out my iPad, the latest model, and showed him the site. Soon, Emma drifted over too, her curiosity overcoming her teenage indifference. Later, as Claire served dessert, Daniel cornered me in the kitchen. Mom, this is incredible what you've done. I had no idea. You never asked, Daniel. I know. We've been terrible to you. After Dad died, it was just, I don't know. It was easier to keep distance than to deal with the grief. I'd waited years to hear something like this, but now that it was happening, I felt nothing but calm detachment. That explanation might work for the first year, Daniel, but 7 years? That wasn't grief. That was choice. He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm not looking for apologies, not anymore. What are you looking for? He asked. I considered his question carefully. What did I want from this family that had pushed me aside for so long? Nothing, I finally said. That's the beautiful part. I don't need anything from you anymore. Not approval, not attention, not even love. I built a life without those things, a good life. But Daniel's revelation wasn't the most surprising part of the evening. What came next would test my newfound independence in ways I never expected.
The morning after Christmas, I woke early in Daniel's guest room. The bed was comfortable enough, but I'd grown used to my own space, my own rhythms. I checked my email, 3 new subscription sign-ups overnight, and a message from my assistant about a potential partnership opportunity. Normal business, even on holidays. I dressed and went downstairs, following the smell of coffee. To my surprise, both Daniel and Claire were already up, sitting at the kitchen island with papers spread before them. They straightened when they saw me, exchanging a look that immediately put me on guard. "Good morning," I said, helping myself to coffee. "You're up early." "We've been thinking," Daniel began, that familiar, eager tone in his voice that appeared whenever he had a new scheme, "about your business." "Oh," I took a deliberate sip of coffee. Claire slid a paper toward me. "We've drafted a proposal for a partnership." I glanced at the document without touching it. "A partnership," I repeated. "Yes," Daniel's enthusiasm bubbled over. "Mom, what you've built is amazing, but think how much bigger it could be with our help. Claire's got marketing experience from her days at the agency, and I know all about scaling operations. Plus," Claire added, "we have connections. My cousin works at a seniors magazine with national distribution. We could get you featured." I set my coffee down carefully. "And what exactly would this partnership entail?" Daniel grinned. "We'd form a family business, split ownership 3 ways. Claire and I would handle the business side, marketing, expansion, partnerships, while you could focus on just creating content." "Just creating content," I echoed. "You mean the part where I share my lifetime of experience and wisdom, the part that actually brings people to the site, the part I've been doing successfully while also handling all the business aspects myself for 2 years?" Their smiles faltered. "Well, yes, but," Claire began. "And in exchange for taking over the business I built from nothing, you'd graciously allow me to keep a third of it?" I continued, my voice calm but firm. "Mom, it's not like that," Daniel protested. "We want to help. Make it even bigger." "Bigger isn't always better, Daniel. I built New Horizons to be exactly what I wanted it to be: authentic, helpful, and mine." "But think about it," Claire pressed. "With our help, you could reach so many more seniors. Isn't that what you want?" I studied them both. It was fascinating how quickly I'd transformed in their eyes, from forgotten mother to valuable business asset. "What I want," I said carefully, "is to enjoy the company of my family because they value me, not my bank account or business potential." Daniel had the grace to look ashamed, but Claire pressed on. "Helen, be practical. You're 72. How long can you keep managing everything yourself? What's your succession plan?" Ah, there it was. They weren't just seeing dollar signs. They were already imagining inheriting my business. "My succession plan is to hire competent people who share my vision and values, something I've already begun doing." "But we're family," Daniel insisted. "Yes, we are. Which is why this conversation is especially disappointing." I pushed the proposal back toward them. "I'm not interested in a partnership. Not now. Not ever." Claire's pleasant mask slipped. "That's very short-sighted, Helen." "No, Claire. Short-sighted was excluding me from your lives for 7 years and then expecting me to hand over my hard-earned success the minute you discovered it existed." I stood up, suddenly eager to leave this house and return to my own space. "I'll be checking out of my hotel and returning home today. Thank you for the invitation." As I turned to go upstairs and pack, Daniel called after me. "Mom, wait. We can talk about this. Maybe a different arrangement." I paused on the stairs. "There's nothing to discuss, Daniel. My business isn't for sale. not even to family, especially not to family. What I didn't tell them was that their transparent attempt at taking over had actually clarified something important for me, a decision about my future that would shape the next chapter of my life in ways even I couldn't fully imagine.
The car service picked me up an hour later. I left without the tearful goodbyes or promises to stay in touch that might have happened in another family. Claire was coolly polite, Daniel frustrated but trying to hide it. The grandchildren were the only genuine ones. Ryan gave me a tight hug and asked if he could visit sometime. I gave him my card with my contact information, knowing Daniel and Claire would probably lose it. As we drove away from Richmond, I felt a weight lifting. I come looking for what exactly? Reconciliation? Recognition? Whatever it was, I'd received something different, but perhaps more valuable. Confirmation that I'd made the right choices. Back in my downtown condo with its modern furnishings and wall-to-wall windows overlooking the city, I felt truly at home. I made myself a proper cup of tea and settled at my desk, ready to work despite the holiday. My business didn't run itself, after all. My assistant, Meredith, had sent over several messages about a speaking opportunity at a tech conference focused on senior entrepreneurs. The irony wasn't lost on me, being asked to speak about digital entrepreneurship in my 70s. If only my former colleagues from the school administration office could see me now. As I typed my acceptance email, my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. "This is Ryan. Dad doesn't know I'm texting. Your website is really cool. Can you teach me how to make one?" I smiled. Perhaps one family member was salvageable after all. "I'd be happy to, Ryan. It can be our secret project." The next few months passed in a productive blur. My business continued to grow, now with a small team of part-time employees who shared my vision for helping seniors navigate their later years with dignity and purpose. I hired a college student to help manage my increasingly active social media accounts, where my straightforward approach and no-nonsense grandma persona have developed quite a following. I didn't hear from Daniel or Claire, which was exactly what I expected. Ryan and I texted occasionally. He was bright and curious, reminding me of Daniel before he became so focused on appearances and status. Then in late March, I received a LinkedIn message that would change everything yet again. "Mrs. Crawford, my name is Vanessa Liu from Silver Ventures. We're an investment group specializing in businesses serving the senior market. Your work with New Horizons Journal has caught our attention. Would you be open to discussing potential investment opportunities?" Investment? I hadn't considered that path. I'd been growing steadily on my own terms, reinvesting profits and expanding organically. But with proper funding, how many more seniors could I reach? How much bigger could my impact be? I wrote back, agreeing to a meeting the following week. Vanessa turned out to be a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s, young enough to understand digital business, but old enough to respect my life experience. She laid out an impressive proposal, significant investment capital in exchange for a minority stake, with me retaining full creative control and leadership. She didn't want to change what I was doing, she explained. She wanted to amplify it. Your authentic voice is exactly what's missing in the senior market. By the end of our second meeting, I was convinced. The deal would allow me to expand in ways I'd only dreamed of, developing a proper app, hiring more staff, creating higher quality video content, maybe even publishing a book. I signed the papers on my 77th birthday, celebrating with Meredith and my small team. That evening, as I enjoyed a glass of champagne on my balcony, watching the city lights come alive, my phone rang. It was Daniel. "Mom," he said, his voice strained, "I just saw the press release about your investment deal. Congratulations." I waited, saying nothing. I owe you an apology, a real one. I underestimated you. We all did. But what happened next would force me to confront what I truly wanted from my relationship with my son, and whether some bridges, once burned, could ever truly be rebuilt.
"Thank you for the congratulations, Daniel," I said, keeping my voice neutral. The champagne in my hand had lost some of its appeal. "It's a big deal, Mom. Silver Ventures doesn't invest in just anyone. Their portfolio's impressive." Of course he'd researched them. Daniel had always been thorough when money was involved. "How did you see the press release?" I asked. It had only gone out that afternoon. "Claire set up Google Alerts for your company after Christmas," he admitted. "We've been following your progress." I wasn't sure whether to be flattered or disturbed by this surveillance. "I see." An awkward silence stretched between us. Finally, Daniel spoke again, his voice softer. "Ryan misses you. He talks about your texts all the time." "I miss him too." It was the honest truth. My grandson had shown more genuine interest in me than his parents had in years. Would you consider letting him visit sometime? Maybe during spring break next month? I could drop him off." I considered the request. Was this another attempt to work their way back into my business? Or was it a genuine olive branch? "Ryan is welcome anytime," I said finally. "But I need to be clear about something, Daniel. If this is some roundabout way to get close to my business again, it's not. I promise. This is about Ryan and trying to fix things between us, if that's even possible." I sighed, watching the city lights blur slightly as my eyes misted over. "I don't know if it's possible, Daniel. Trust, once broken, is hard to repair." "I know, but I'd like to try." His voice cracked slightly. "Losing Dad it broke something in me. I didn't handle it well. Instead of leaning on you, I pushed you away. It was easier than facing the grief." It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in years. "Grief does strange things to people," I conceded. "But 7 years is a long time to push someone away." "I know. I have no excuse, just regret." We fell silent again, the weight of lost years hanging between us. "Let's start with Ryan's visit, one step at a time." After we hung up, I sat on my balcony for a long time, thinking about second chances and whether Daniel deserved one. I'd built my new life on the foundation of his rejection. Could I integrate him back in without compromising everything I'd created? Spring break arrived quicker than I expected. True to his word, Daniel dropped Ryan off at my condo on a Monday morning. He didn't try to come up, just helped Ryan with his bag and said he'd be back Friday. Having a 10-year-old in my space was an adjustment, but a delightful one. Ryan was curious about everything: my computer setup, my recording equipment for the podcast I had recently started, even the colorful array of sticky notes where I'd jotted down content ideas. "Can we really make a website together?" he asked me on our first day. "Absolutely," I told him. "By the time you leave, you'll have your very own site." We spent the week dividing our time between fun tourist activities around the city and working on Ryan's website, a showcase for his surprisingly good photography. He had an eye for composition that impressed me. On our last evening together, as we sat eating ice cream and putting the finishing touches on his site, Ryan looked up at me thoughtfully. "Grandma, why don't you and Dad get along?" I carefully considered my answer. Sometimes adults make mistakes that are hard to fix. Your dad and I both made mistakes. He's different when he talks about you now. Not angry anymore, just sad. I hadn't realized Daniel had been angry with me. I thought it had simply been indifference. Somehow anger seemed better. At least it was an emotion. Relationships are complicated, sweetheart, but I'm glad we're getting to know each other now. Ryan nodded, then asked the question I should have seen coming. "Will you teach Dad how to make websites too? He really wants to learn." I nearly choked on my ice cream. "Your dad said that?" Ryan nodded earnestly. "He stays up late looking at coding videos. He says he wants to understand what you do."
This revelation stunned me. Daniel, my corporate ladder-climbing son, was trying to understand my world, not to take it over, but simply to understand. The next morning, when Daniel came to pick up Ryan, I invited him up for coffee, the first voluntary invitation I'd extended to him in years. As Ryan showed him the website they had created together, I saw something in Daniel's eyes I hadn't seen since he was a boy. Genuine wonder and pride. "This is incredible, Ryan. You did this?" "Grandma taught me. It wasn't even that hard." Daniel looked at me, something like respect in his eyes. "You're a good teacher." "I've had a lot of practice lately." After Ryan went to pack his things, Daniel turned to me. "Thank you for this week. He hasn't stopped talking about you since Christmas." I nodded, then made a decision I hoped I wouldn't regret. "Ryan mentioned you've been watching coding tutorials." Daniel flushed with embarrassment. "He wasn't supposed to tell you that." "Why are you doing it?" He looked away, then back at me, his father's honesty finally showing in his face. "Because I want to understand the world you've built for yourself, the world I excluded myself from." It was a moment of vulnerability I hadn't expected, opening a door I thought was permanently closed. But what waited on the other side would test every boundary I'd carefully constructed in my new life.
The next phase of our relationship began tentatively, with occasional texts and brief phone calls. Daniel would ask questions about my business, not with the predatory interest he'd shown at Christmas, but with genuine curiosity. How did I come up with content ideas? What platform did I use for my website? How did I handle negative comments? I answered cautiously at first, always watching for signs that he was working his way back to another takeover attempt. But those signs never materialized. Instead, I saw something I'd never expected: my son humbling himself to learn from his mother. In April, I launched a new 8-week online course called Digital Beginnings for Seniors, teaching basic tech skills to people my age who felt left behind by technology. During our weekly call, I mentioned it to Daniel. "That sounds perfect for beginners," he said. "I wish I could see how you teach it." I hesitated, then made an impulsive offer. "You could take the course if you want. Not that you need beginner tech skills, but to see my teaching approach." "Really? You wouldn't mind?" "Consider it research," I said. "I'd actually value your feedback as someone who's not in my usual demographic." So Daniel enrolled in my course, becoming my most diligent student. He completed every assignment, participated in discussion forums, and sent me detailed notes after each module. His corporate background gave him a perspective my senior students didn't have, highlighting opportunities for improvement I might have missed. By the end of the course, our weekly calls had evolved into strategy sessions. Not because Daniel was trying to take over, but because he genuinely wanted to help, on my terms. Meanwhile, my partnership with Silver Ventures was transforming New Horizons. We launched the app I dreamed of, expanded my team to 12 people, and began production on a video series about seniors embracing new beginnings. My income had multiplied, allowing me to move into an even nicer condo and establish a scholarship fund for senior education. As summer approached, I invited Ryan to spend a month with me. To my surprise, Daniel asked if he could visit on weekends. "Just to spend time with both of you," he clarified. "No business talk unless you bring it up." I agreed. And thus began our new tradition: Friday night dinners at my place. Just the three of us. Sometimes we'd go out exploring the city. Other times we'd stay in and cook together. Ryan thrived with the attention from both of us, and I discovered a side of Daniel I hadn't seen since he was young. Playful, curious, unburdened by status anxiety. One Friday in July, Daniel arrived alone. "He's at a friend's birthday sleepover," he explained. "I thought about canceling, but..." He held up a bottle of wine.
I brought your favorite. We sat on my balcony, watching the sunset and sharing the bottle. The conversation flowed easily until Daniel grew serious. I need to tell you something, Mom. I immediately went on guard. What is it? I quit my job. I nearly spilled my wine. You what? I gave notice last week. He looked both terrified and exhilarated. I've been miserable there for years, but I was too afraid to leave, too concerned about appearances. What will you do? I asked, genuinely concerned. What does Claire think? His expression clouded. Claire and I are taking some time apart. She didn't support my decision, said I was having a midlife crisis. I set down my glass. Are you? He laughed. Maybe. If so, it's long overdue. He turned to me, his eyes clear and determined. The truth is, watching you reinvent yourself at 70 inspired me. If my mother can start over and build something meaningful, why can't I? Daniel, I'm flattered, but I'm not asking for anything, he interrupted. Not a job, not money, nothing. I've saved enough to take some time to figure things out. He paused, vulnerable again. I just wanted you to know. Your courage changed more than just your own life. I felt tears threatening. After all the years of rejection, to hear that I'd inspired my son was overwhelming. What will you do? I asked again, softer this time. I'm going to take some coding classes. For real, not just YouTube tutorials. I've always been good with technology, just never had the chance to explore it professionally. I studied him, seeing George and his profile in the determined set of his jaw. You know, New Horizons isn't the only way to reach seniors with technology. There's room in this market for many approaches. Daniel smiled. That's what I've been thinking too. We talked late into the night, not as mother and son with a broken past, but as two adults facing new beginnings. I didn't offer him a job or a partnership. We both knew that would be a mistake. But I did offer something perhaps more valuable: mentorship. What I couldn't have anticipated was how quickly Daniel would take his own path, one that would eventually circle back to mine in the most unexpected way, forcing me to reconsider everything I thought I knew about family, business, and second chances.
By the fall, Daniel had settled into his new life. He'd found a small apartment not far from my condo, enrolled in an intensive coding boot camp, and begun the painful process of divorcing Claire. Ryan split his time between them, spending every other weekend with Daniel, and often, by extension, with me. I kept my distance from the divorce proceedings, offering support to Daniel without criticizing Claire. Whatever had happened between them wasn't my business, though I suspected my success and Daniel's subsequent career change had exposed cracks that were already there. Meanwhile, New Horizons continued to flourish. The investment from Silver Ventures had allowed me to expand in ways I'd never imagined. We now had a popular YouTube channel, a thriving membership community, and even a small publishing imprint focused on senior authors. My weekly dinners with Daniel and Ryan continued, becoming the highlight of my week. Watching my son rediscover himself was fascinating. He seemed younger, more energetic, more like the curious boy I remembered before the corporate world claimed him. One Friday in October, Daniel arrived at our dinner with a gleam in his eye I recognized immediately. The same look he'd had at 7 when he built his first model airplane, at 12 when he won the science fair, at 16 when he got his driver's license. "What is it?" I asked as he helped me set the table. "You're practically bouncing." "I have something to show you after dinner," he said mysteriously. "Something I've been working on." Throughout the meal, he could barely contain himself. Even Ryan noticed. "Dad's been super weird all week, Grandma," he confided. "He stays up super late working on his computer." Finally, after we'd cleared the plates, Daniel opened his laptop. "I've been developing something, a companion app to New Horizons." My guard went up slightly. "Daniel, it's not what you think," he said quickly. "I'm not trying to horn in on your business. This is completely separate but complementary." He turned the screen toward me. "It's called Bridge. It's an app designed for the children and grandchildren of seniors. It helps younger people understand and connect with the older generation." I leaned forward, intrigued despite my caution. The interface was clean, intuitive, and unlike anything I'd seen before. "How does it work?" I asked. "It's like a reverse of what New Horizons does. Instead of helping seniors navigate the modern world, Bridge helps younger people understand seniors' perspectives and experiences." He demonstrated features like a translation tool that explained outdated phrases and references, a historical context provider that linked current events to similar moments from the past, and a guided conversation module designed to help younger people ask meaningful questions of their older relatives. He admitted the idea came from watching you and Ryan. You bridge the generation gap so naturally, but not everyone has a Helen Crawford in their life. I was genuinely impressed. "This is remarkably thoughtful, Daniel." "There's more," he said, clicking to another screen. "I've designed it to be a perfect companion to New Horizons. Users of your platform could invite their families to Bridge, creating connected accounts that would enhance both experiences." I sat back, processing what he was proposing. This wasn't a takeover attempt. This was something new, a true complementary business that could extend my mission across generations. "You've put a lot of thought into this," I said carefully. "I have." His expression grew serious. "Mom, I'm not asking for your endorsement or investment. I wanted to show you first out of respect, because it operates in the same space as your business. If you have concerns, I'll pivot or shelve it entirely." The Daniel of a year ago would never have offered such a thing. He would have forged ahead, convinced of his own brilliance, regardless of my feelings. "I don't want you to shelve it," I said slowly. "It's a brilliant concept, but I do have questions about implementation, user privacy, and marketing approach." We spent the next 2 hours discussing the finer points of his business plan while Ryan played video games in the living room. I pointed out potential pitfalls. He offered solutions. I suggested refinements. He took careful notes. It was the most equal, respectful conversation we'd ever had as adults. As the evening wound down, I made a decision. "I'd like to introduce you to Vanessa at Silver Ventures. No promises, but your concept fits their investment profile perfectly." Daniel's eyes widened. "You do that?" "You've done the work, Daniel. The concept is solid. The execution plan is thoughtful. You've earned the introduction." 2 weeks later, after a grueling pitch meeting where I sat silently in the back of the room, Silver Ventures offered Daniel seed funding for Bridge. The terms required him to work closely with New Horizons to ensure compatibility between our platforms without either of us having direct control over the other's business. It was, in many ways, the perfect solution, allowing us to collaborate as equals while maintaining our independence. By December, we were officially partner companies, our apps designed to work in tandem but capable of standing alone. The press loved the story. Mother and son, each finding success in their senior years and early 40s respectively, bridging generations through technology. What no one outside our family knew was that the true bridge had nothing to do with apps or technology. The real bridge was built through Friday night dinners, weekend coding sessions, honest conversations, and the slow, careful reconstruction of trust. As Christmas approached, our first as business partners and a reconnected family, I received an unexpected email that would test this newly rebuilt relationship in ways neither of us could have anticipated.
The email arrived on a Tuesday morning in mid-December, its subject line stopping me cold. Acquisition offer, Golden Years Media Group. Golden Years Media Group was the largest company in the senior market space, a corporate behemoth that had been trying to dominate digital content for older adults for years. Their products were slick but soulless, focusing more on monetization than genuine service. The email was direct. They wanted to acquire both New Horizons and Bridge, bringing our innovative approaches under their corporate umbrella. The offered amount was staggering, life-changing money for both Daniel and me. My first instinct was to delete it immediately. I'd built New Horizons to be authentic and independent, not to become another corporate asset. But professional courtesy demanded at least a response, so I forwarded the email to Vanessa at Silver Ventures for her input. Her call came within minutes. "Helen, this is huge," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Golden Years doesn't make offers like this lightly." "I'm not interested," I said firmly. "New Horizons isn't for sale." "I understand your position," Vanessa replied, her tone measured. "But as your investor, I have to advise you to at least take the meeting, hear them out. The valuation they're suggesting is extraordinary." After we hung up, I sat staring at my computer, conflicted. I didn't want to sell, but I had responsibilities to my investors and my team. At the very least, I needed to discuss this with Daniel, since Bridge was included in the offer. I called him immediately, expecting him to share my hesitation. To my surprise, he sounded excited. "This is incredible, Mom. Do you realize what kind of validation this is? The biggest company in the space wants what we've built." "They want to absorb what we've built. There's a difference. Still, we should at least take the meeting. What's the harm in listening?" Reluctantly, I agreed. The meeting was scheduled for the following week at Golden Years' sleek downtown offices. Daniel and I arrived together, presenting a united front despite our differing perspectives. We were ushered into a conference room where 3 executives waited, all men in their 40s, all in nearly identical suits. Their presentation was polished, full of charts showing projected growth and synergies. They spoke about leveraging our authentic voice and scaling our intimate community approach. Every word made my skin crawl. When they finally named their offer, even higher than the email that suggested, Daniel visibly reacted. I kept my face neutral. "We'll need time to consider," I said when they finished. "Of course," said the CEO, Marcus Winters, "but we're hoping to announce this acquisition by the new year, so we'd appreciate a decision within the week." In the taxi afterwards, Daniel was jubilant. "Can you believe that number? We'd never have to work again." Is that what you want? To never work again? You just found something you're passionate about. His excitement dimmed slightly. "Well, no, but the financial security would be incredible for both of us, for Ryan's future." "And what happens to our users, the communities we've created? Do you think Golden Years will maintain the integrity of what we've created?" Daniel sighed. "Maybe not exactly as we have, but they'd reach more seniors with our approach. Isn't that what you wanted? To help as many people as possible?"
Help them, yes, not exploit them. Have you looked at Golden Year's monetization strategies? The way they harvest user data? The aggressive upselling? We could negotiate terms, Daniel argued. Maintain some control. I shook my head. That's not how acquisitions work. Once they own it, they own it. We parted without resolution, agreeing to think independently and reconvene in 2 days. That night, I couldn't sleep. The money would secure my future beyond any concern, allow me to travel, to give generously to causes I cared about. But every time I considered saying yes, I remembered why I'd started New Horizons in the first place: to give seniors like me a voice, to create a space where we weren't patronized or exploited. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with my team. Without revealing specifics of the offer, I asked them what New Horizons meant to them, what vision had drawn them to work with me. Their answers brought tears to my eyes. They spoke of purpose, of meaningful connection, of creating something that genuinely helped people. Not one of them mentioned money or growth for its own sake. By the time Daniel arrived at my condo that evening, I had made my decision. The question was whether it would cost me the rebuilt relationship with my son. I'm not selling. I can't. New Horizons isn't just a business to me. It's my purpose, my community, my legacy. He was quiet for a long moment. I braced myself for disappointment, for accusations of sentimentality overriding good business sense. Instead, he surprised me once again. I know, he said softly. I've been thinking about it nonstop, and I realized something important. What's that? I didn't leave my corporate job just to end up in another corporate structure. I built Bridge because I believed in connecting generations, not in making the most possible money. Relief washed over me. So you're not selling either? No, though I almost convinced myself it was the right move. He smiled ruefully. Old habits die hard. But then I asked myself what you would do, and the answer was clear. I reached across the table and took his hand. We've come a long way, haven't we? We have, from me not inviting you to Christmas to turning down millions together. Quite a year. When we called Golden Years to decline their offer the next day, they were shocked. They increased the number, then tried veiled threats about competing products, then finally accepted our decision with obvious frustration. As we hung up, Daniel turned to me with a mischievous smile I hadn't seen since he was a boy. You know what this means, don't you? What? We've got work to do. If Golden Years wants what we have, they'll try to copy it. We need to stay 10 steps ahead. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in days. I think you mean we need to stay 72 steps ahead. As Christmas approached, I reflected on the incredible journey of the past 3 years, from forgotten mother to successful entrepreneur to reconciled parent and business ally. The path had neither been straight nor easy, but standing at its current point, I wouldn't change a thing. What I didn't know then was that our decision to remain independent would set in motion events that would make the coming year the most surprising yet, beginning with an unexpected visitor on Christmas Eve who would change our understanding of family, forgiveness, and the true meaning of new beginnings.
Christmas Eve arrived with a light dusting of snow, the first white Christmas our city had seen in years. I'd invited Daniel and Ryan to my condo for dinner, along with Meredith and her family, and a few members of my team who didn't have local relatives. My once quiet home would be filled with voices, laughter, and the kind of holiday warmth I'd missed for so many years. I spent the day cooking, George's traditional roast beef, my mother's cranberry relish,
and a new recipe for chocolate tart I'd found on a senior chef's blog I followed. The familiar rituals soothed me, connecting me to holidays past while creating something new. The doorbell rang at exactly 4 o'clock. Daniel was always punctual, a trait he'd inherited from George. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Daniel standing there. It was Claire. She looked different, thinner, with her once perfect blonde hair cut into a simpler style, wearing jeans instead of her usual tailored pants. But the most striking change was in her eyes. The cool calculation I'd grown accustomed to was replaced by something like uncertainty. "Claire?" I said, too surprised to say more. "Hello, Helen. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. I can come back another time." "No, it's all right." I stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come in." She entered hesitantly, looking around at my decorated condo. "Your place is beautiful. I never got to see it properly." "Thank you." I led her to the living room. "Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Wine?" "Just water, please." I busied myself in the kitchen trying to process this unexpected visit. Claire and I had barely spoken since they and Daniel separated. What could she want on Christmas Eve? When I returned with 2 glasses of water, she was standing by my window looking out at the snow-dusted city. "Daniel and Ryan will be here soon," I said, handing her a glass, "if you're hoping to see them." "Actually, I came to see you, Helen. Daniel doesn't know I'm here." I gestured for her to sit, taking the chair opposite. "I'm listening." Claire took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology, Helen. A long overdue one." Of all the things I'd expected her to say, this wasn't on the list. "For years, I encouraged Daniel to keep distance between you and us. It wasn't just him, it was me too. Maybe even more me than him." "Why?" I asked simply. She looked down at her hands. "I told myself it was because you reminded Daniel too much of his grief over George, that keeping you at arm's length was protecting him." She paused. "But that wasn't the whole truth." I waited, giving her space to continue. "The truth is, I was jealous of your relationship. The way Daniel admired you, even when he was pushing you away, the way he measured himself against George's standards. I wanted to be the only influence in his life, in Ryan and Emma's lives." Her honesty was disarming. "That's surprisingly self-aware, Claire." A small smile touched her lips. 2 years of therapy will do that. The divorce forced me to look at a lot of ugly truths about myself. "I'm sorry about the divorce," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I'd never wished unhappiness on either of them. "Don't be. It needed to happen. Daniel and I weren't good for each other. Hadn't been for a long time. We were just going through the motions, keeping up appearances. And now?"
Now I'm trying to be better. For Emma and Ryan. For myself. She met my eyes directly. "Daniel told me you turned down the acquisition offer." "We did. That's what finally made me come here today. When he told me about it, how you both chose purpose over profit, it made me realize how wrong I've been about you. About a lot of things." The doorbell rang again, startling us both. "That will be Daniel and Ryan," I said, standing. Claire rose quickly. "I should go. I didn't mean to intrude on your holiday." "Wait. I made a decision that surprised even me. Stay. Have dinner with us." She looked shocked. "Are you sure? Daniel might not." "It's my home and it's Christmas. Stay." When I opened the door, Daniel's expression of holiday cheer transformed to confusion at the sight of Claire behind me. Ryan, however, lit up. "Mom, you're here too? Awesome!" The next few moments were awkward, with Daniel pulling me aside to whisper, "What's going on? Why is she here?" She came to apologize to me, and I invited her to stay. He looked skeptical but nodded. "It's your call." The evening that followed was nothing like I'd imagined, but somehow exactly what we all needed. Meredith and my team members arrived, filling the space with enough conversation that no one had to force interaction. Ryan shuttled between his parents, delighted to have both in the same room. Emma arrived later, initially sullen, but gradually warming as the night progressed. After dinner, as everyone moved to the living room for dessert, Claire approached me in the kitchen. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said quietly. "It means more than you know." "We're family, Claire. Not in the way we once were, but still connected." I handed her a stack of dessert plates. "The past is gone. What matters is what we build now." As midnight approached, I found myself on the balcony, wrapped in a warm blanket, watching the snow fall over the city. Daniel joined me, handing me a fresh cup of tea. "That was unexpected," I said. "Life usually is." I sipped my tea. "Are you okay with Claire being here?" He considered the question. "Strangely, yes. It felt right somehow, for Ryan and Emma, for all of us." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the snowflakes dance in the light of the street lamps below. "You know," Daniel said eventually, "a year ago, I wouldn't have imagined this. You and me, standing here, business partners, family again, and certainly not with Claire joining us for Christmas." "Life at 73 is full of surprises," I replied. "That's what I try to teach on New Horizons. It's never too late for a new beginning." Daniel smiled. "You should put that on a t-shirt." "Maybe I will," I laughed. "For the New Horizons merchandise line we're launching next spring." As we stood there, I thought about the long, winding path that had brought me to this moment, from the lonely widow excluded from her family's life to successful entrepreneur, from estranged mother to reconciled parent and mentor. None of it had come easily. All of it had been worth it. Inside my warm condo, voices and laughter mingled. My team, my family, my new life, and my old one somehow finding harmony together. At 73, I discovered a truth that had eluded me in my younger years. Family isn't just what you're born into or what you create through marriage. Family is what you build, nurture, and sometimes rebuild, one conscious choice at a time. As the snow continued to fall, coating the city in a blanket of possibility, I made a silent promise to myself. This was just the beginning. There were more horizons to explore, more bridges to build, more chapters to write in this unexpected second act of my life. And I couldn't wait to see what came next.